Red blood and black powder stained his perfectly white t-shirt. His jaw was swollen, his eyes were shut, but his thick-rimmed glasses stared right at me. I was scared. As a surgery trainee at the University of Maryland in Baltimore at shock trauma, I was supposed to be leading the team whose job it was to save him. But he would not have it. That day, a bullet made its way into his head, and I didn't know how deep it went. When a patient refuses care, the team around them builds in chaos, and the volume rises, and that's exactly what happened that day. In the midst of this, me failing and flailing, my supervisor that night, Dr. Carlos Rodriguez, came to the bedside, a U.S. Navy officer and trauma surgeon. He looked at the man in those thick-rimmed glasses and said, "Sir, what branch of the military were you in?" And his eyes opened up, and we all stepped back, recognizing something sacred had just happened. We left the men to talk, and 5 minutes later, Dr. Rodriguez came up to me and said, "He's going to let you treat him now." And we entered the room with a quiet respect, seeing what we hadn't seen the first time, but what Dr. Rodriguez saw clearly in those thick-rimmed, standard military-issue glasses that only a proud veteran would wear. See, it had been a year since that man's wife had died and his own cancer was spreading. A bullet seemed like the only way he could live. And what Dr. Rodriguez saw clearly, but I didn't even look at, was what the man honored most in himself, his service to others and our country. We treated the man, and a month later he died. But at home with his family, loved, remembered for the life he had lived and not for the nightmare he had come to know. Dr. Rodriguez could see. He saw true identity, and for him, the answer was respect. I decided that day two things: that as a surgeon, this is the way I would operate, and that I needed to understand what bullets did to people. I've learned a lot since then. In the last 15 years, over 500,000 people have lost their lives to bullets. Nothing causes homicide or suicide more than a bullet. In adults, they're more than twice as likely to put a bullet in themselves than to have their life taken by another. For the children, it's opposite. Bullets are the second leading cause of death in children, killing twice as many as cancer. In 2017, more school-aged children died than active duty military and law enforcement combined. Women die from the bullets of lovers 10 times a week, more in this country than anywhere else in the world. If the front row were all veterans and bullets continued at the current tempo, you would be gone tomorrow. If this auditorium was impacted at bullets at the speed they're going through this country, it would be empty in 4 days. And if everyone in this place was a black man, nothing would be more likely to take your life before the age of 35 than a bullet. My father is a black man. and he was bleeding when he met my mother. It wasn't a bullet. It wasn't a bullet, though. He just cut his hand. I'm sorry. That's heavy. I'm sorry. He just cut his hand. He was putting bikes together at Toys R Us where he worked. And she was a cashier. Stars. He went to her, asked for a Band-Aid. And here I am. The story goes he proposed in the break room, so that does make me a Toys R Us kid. I grew up in a small town in Ohio with my grandmother and mother, where the river is wide, but the money is short. I rode my bike through those small town streets with shot puts and softballs. I ruled that world. I had an interest in music, and my grandmother read in the paper about a woman who gave piano lessons, Miss Elizabeth Pope Carter, a school crossing guard and a gospel musician who saw children go to school without what they needed. She opened her home, she gave her talents, and literally fed people on her street with the help of her husband. They had a barbecue house, a clothing house, a place for people to stay, a cultural center, and a music house. For $2, you could go to the music house and have a piano lesson with Miss Carter. It included one-on-one time with her, time to practice, and a snack from the kitchen, the best part of the deal. The magic of Miss Carter was the way she would take people who came to her for help and turn them into helpers by giving them something to give. I served a lot of mashed potatoes from that barbecue house in the time I spent with Mrs. Carter. One day, I was playing my favorite song during my practice time, Give Me That Old Time Religion. I was 10. I played with one hand. And Miss Carter was walking through. She saw me and she stopped. She said, Laurie, you got the beat. She sat down beside me and she started playing as I tinkered along. And you could not tell me we were not playing a concert in heaven. It sounded so good. Miss Carter made me believe that I could be great. Miss Carter could hear the hope of childhood. And for her, the answer was radical generosity of her time, of her talents, of herself. I rode Mrs. Carter's magic to college in New Haven, medical school in Hartford, residency in Baltimore, learning in Houston, and a career in trauma surgery in St. Louis. Along the way, I've seen a lot of life and death. And there doesn't seem to be any death that comes with the speed and the cruelty of the death caused by a bullet. Bullets are fast, some traveling faster than the speed of sound, certainly faster than our hearts can think and our brains can feel. Bullets take our worst moments, our deepest thought, and make them into a permanent reality. They can twist a child's curiosity into a final, not happy ending. They can turn a lover's quarrel into a forever, never intended. Bullets shred aortas. They crack kidneys. They drown lungs. They sever spines. And those half-inch pieces of metal create a lifetime of suffering. I was in the operating room the other day with a young man suffering from many bullet injuries. With my team, we were repairing bowel and stopping bleeding. He's got a cut and a bag now. As we were finishing the operation, my resident, Dr. Wenwei Tan, felt on his side something. Was it a bullet? Should she take it out? See, surgeons aren't taught to chase bullets. We fix holes. We stitch things. But we don't want to go too deep, right? Right? We wouldn't want to cause a deeper injury. So often bullets remain. But there's a study that has shown that people with retained bullets in their body have higher rates of depression. Bullets get in our heads. And so I try to take them out. So I told Dr. Tan, yeah, take it out. So she started working on it diligently, first feeling, and then trying to see, putting the light and shining it bright. It's incredible how dark it can be inside people. But she could not see, and she could not feel. So she had to make a cut. With that cut, she was able to go deep enough and get the bullet out. Her hands are small but precise. And she held that half-inch piece of metal in her size 6 hand and said, I could see how that could bother someone. See, Dr. Tan didn't just cut out that bullet. She cut out the hate that put it there. She can feel how bullets go deep. And for her, the answer was to cut it out. After that operation, that young man's mama called into the operating room, and I spoke to her on the phone. And after I told her that he was alive and had a bag, she had one question for me. Did you get all the bullets out? Why is that her question? Why is that what she has to know right now? Because that mama knows that that hate has no place in her child. Bullets don't just go through skin and muscle and bone. They cut right through families. They crack open communities. They break homes. And they are dividing our country. There are a lot of debates about why this is happening. This is how they sound to me. Some people say it's 7 minus 4. Some people say it's 30 divided by 10. Some people say it's negative 13 plus 16. Some people say, y'all crazy, it's the square root of 9. But while we're out here arguing about these numbers, I don't think we're doing the math. Because 1 bullet plus 2 bodies equals a lot of blood. And that 3 covers me in that operating room. I ask myself, how do bullets get so deep? And I realize after all these years of learning how to cut them out and learn how to sew people up, that's not really the question. The question is, why do we put them there? And it seems to me, after all this time, that we see and we hear and we feel bullets more than we see ourselves and our neighbors. Bullets go deep because we put them there. Are we really seeing each other in our communities when mosques and temples and churches are covered in blood? Are we really hearing our children when classrooms are crime scenes? Are we really feeling the depth of what bullets do when we let them get so close to our darkest despair and our deepest disrespect? There are more bullets made in this country every year than there are people. This really is about everyone. You know, at the end of that case with that young man, as he was starting to come out of the end of the surgery, the anesthesia doctors who helped me get him through that started talking to him. When someone has been asleep for a while, sometimes they need to know it's okay to be awake. They say, open your eyes. Take a deep breath. Your surgery is over now. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up and see the truth of what bullets do. It's time to wake up and hear the voices of our dead children. It's time to wake up and feel us. It's time to wake up. 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 It's time to wake